All right, it's that time again. Time for another episode of the Recreated Podcast. I'm Pastor Shane, and we are still in our series, Seven Fronts of Spiritual War. You may be wondering if we will ever finish this series. I promise you, after this one, I think there's only 2 episodes left. And it's taken me a while to get through it because I kind of do this at my own pace. And for that, if you're the kind of person who gets in a hurry, I'm going to frustrate you at that level, okay? Because I just do these as I'm able, hopefully every couple of weeks, but that doesn't always work out because of life and the things that go on in life. So this particular episode, we're going to deal with the topic of time and treasures. Your time and treasures are a very serious front of the spiritual war that rages around us. And I know I say that every front is serious, and it's true. They're all very serious. But to be honest, I almost didn't include this one in the series, and then we would have only had 6 fronts. But I've never heard anyone teach on this in this way necessarily, so I was initially hesitant to include it. But as I thought more about it, I became more convinced that it needed to be included. I mean, yeah, I've heard teachings about the importance of our time and treasures before, but not so much in a spiritual war context, okay? So, how are our time and treasures a front in the spiritual war? Well, let's deal with time first, okay? What does the Word of God tell us about our time? Let's start this discussion with probably one of my favorite Bible verses. I have several. This is in the top 10. It's Psalm 90:12. It says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may get a heart of wisdom." So the context of this verse is that it comes after it actually comes after a lament. If you look at verses 9 through 11 of Psalm 90, it says this: "For all our days pass away under your wrath. We bring our years to an end like a sigh. The years of our life are 70, or even by reason of strength 80. Yet their span is but toil and trouble. They are soon gone, and we fly away. Who considers the power of your anger and your wrath according to the fear of you?" So, what is the value of numbering our days? Now, understanding that our time on earth is limited helps us gain wisdom. You don't have unlimited time. None of us do. Therefore, Paul's charge in Ephesians 5:16 actually to make the best use of time starts to make sense, okay? You don't know if you'll get 30 years or 90 years. You know, if you live long enough, you'll start seeing people die at tragically young ages. I mean, we don't know how much time has been given to us. James tells us, "Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." That's James 4:14. So since we have this finite, limited time in this life, the work of the enemy is to tempt us to assume that we have all the time in the world. And if he can lull us into a sense of false longevity, then we become foolish. So if numbering our days makes us wise, then it stands to reason that giving no thought to our limited time kind of makes us idiots. I like the way the King James Bible reads Ephesians 5:16. It says, "redeeming the times." I'm still a little bit old school with some things, and in this case, I prefer the King James rendering of this verse. To redeem something is to compensate for the faults or bad aspects of something. Okay? So when it says redeeming the time because the days are evil, it means to add value to something that's broken. So, we live in broken times, pretty much since Genesis chapter 3. And God's people are to be ones who add value back into a broken system. We redeem the time that we've been given. Now, a lot can be said about that, okay? A lot, really. But I'm just going to zoom in on one particular aspect. What I believe is the most important aspect, okay? The ministry of redeeming our time is that we are salt and light to the world. Now, I covered this in the Kingdom Life series in 2020, but salt is a preserving agent and light is a revealing agent. So we preserve this world and bring light to this world by being spirit-filled, spirit-led Jesus followers. Now, and by doing this, we bring the kingdom of God to the earth in the here and now. Now, not fully. I'm not one of those kingdom now people, okay? Not fully, but in an already but not yet kind of way for this moment in the Lord's redemptive plan. So I do believe that we bring the kingdom with us. Okay, in God's kingdom, we are ambassadors of His kingdom. So wherever we go, we are bringing kingdom with us. Okay, and so the only way we do that is by being spirit-filled, spirit-led Jesus followers. And in doing that, I'm kind of rehashing what I just said. We are salt and we are light. Okay, so the enemy's objective regarding our time is to cause us to become lax, to overestimate, to be presumptuous, to disregard the uncertainty of our frail existence, or as James puts it, to boast in arrogance. See, procrastination is a tool of the devil, and I hate that because I am by nature a procrastinator. I have to fight against that. I know many of you hate to hear that, but it's true, because what we do when we procrastinate is we presume that we will have time to do something later when we truly don't know if later will actually ever come. I think that is the motivation behind James's statement when he says, so whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin. He says that right after he says what he says about our lives being a vapor. Okay? So in other words, your life is a vapor, so do what you know is right now. Not later, but now, because you don't know if later will come, okay? So if the enemy can convince us that we have plenty of time, then he is halfway to completely derailing us. So now I get the balance of this, okay? I understand it, because here's the thing. Yes, the odds are that you and I will wake up in the morning and yeah, the odds are we will have chances to do tomorrow what we put off today, okay? You know what? Sometimes we can't help it. Things happen. Unexpected people show up at your door. Unexpected things break. That kind of stuff happens, and sometimes we have to put off things to tomorrow that we could have done today because things interrupt us. Now, but remember, when we're talking about odds, if the odds are that we will wake up tomorrow, there's also odds that we will not. There are odds. That means there's also a chance that you will lose at those odds. The only certainty that you have where time is concerned is the present. You can't change the past. The future is not written, is uncertain, at least from our perspective, not from God's, but from ours. But the present is always here. So you will be a good steward of time if you guard it, protect it, cultivate it, and of course, redeem it. Okay? Now, another aspect of time is that time changes. And I'm not talking about, the hands on the clock, okay? I'm talking about seasons. And I'm not talking about spring, summer, fall, winter, although we use those as metaphors sometimes to talk about our lives. So here's what I mean. Ecclesiastes 3:1. You've heard this. If you haven't heard it from reading the Bible, you've heard it in a song somewhere. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. Our lives have seasons, and we will be wise to recognize them. All right? There are seasons where it's easier to do certain things for the kingdom, and then there are seasons when it will be harder to do those things. Redeeming our time implies that we understand the season of life that we're currently enduring. Is this a season of planting? Is it a season of harvesting? Is it a season of prosperity or loss? Again, numbering our days gains us a heart of wisdom. So the person who does this will have an acute understanding of their season of life. Let me give you an example. When I turned 40 in the year 2016. I had this sense, a kind of overwhelming sense, and I believe it was from the Lord because I've tested it out and I've prayed, and so I believe the Lord pressed this on me, that the decade between 2016 and 2026 would be a prime season for pressing in on the gifts and talents that the Lord has given me. And look, I didn't presume that I would live all the way through it or anything like that, but instead what I understood is that if I am to arrive at the age of 50, the years between 40 and 50 should be spent squeezing out as much vitality as possible, as much talent as possible, as much gifting as is possible. And it's not because I think that my 50s will be less productive or anything like that, but it is because I sensed in my spirit, I sensed a new season was beginning, and I had a responsibility to make the most of it. I prayed, and I heard the Lord tell me some specific things that needed to happen for this decade to be maxed out for the kingdom. And some of those things were things I had to let go of. Some of those things were things that I had to pursue. So, I mean, that's just, I'm just telling you how it went for me, okay? Now, have I executed perfectly? No, okay. But that sense of urgency for my 40s has never left. I have it in this very moment. I'm working with it, living through it, trying to make the best of it. And I've tried more stuff in my 40s than I did in my 20s and 30s combined. I've written books. I've started podcasts. I've learned new skills. I mean, I've I bought this big laser etcher and almost burnt my house down, but we're good now. We're all repaired from that, and so I've just taken risks, and I continue to develop those things and try new stuff because I've discerned that this is the season of life where I'm supposed to be doing this. It's time for it. So our time is a front of spiritual war. And the enemy is heavily invested in causing us to lose sight of it through procrastination, through arrogance, through vain pursuits, and just generally speaking, just assuming that we'll have time later to do what the Lord wants us to do today. And then there's treasures. Okay, we haven't given much time to treasures here, and it'll be quickly done with here. But treasures, because they're not difficult to portray. As a front of spiritual war, Jesus said, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." That's Matthew 6:21. So our hearts abide with whatever we treasure. So that's an easy target for the enemy. If he can get you to treasure something more than the Lord, then your heart will follow. A heart that loves and follows the Lord treasures him above all else. And that is not hyperbole. It's a spiritual reality. When talking about treasures, Jesus said no one can serve two masters. For either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. That's Matthew 6:24. So Satan and his forces are invested in putting as many alternate treasures in our paths as possible. And he's not especially concerned about which one you chase after, as long as you're not chasing Jesus. So we have to be discerning. We must be discerning about what we treasure the most. Because here's the thing. The reality for everyone is that what we treasure most is a moving target. It is a moving target. Even the most devoted Christians are always discovering idols in their lives that have taken center stage. And our journey of sanctification is one where we are constantly dethroning posers to the throne of our hearts. Jesus Christ alone belongs there. And when we discover that something or someone else has been sitting there on his throne, it's our job to dethrone the imposter. Now, this is why I included time and treasure together in one episode, because they're linked inseparably. You'll give your time to whatever or whomever you treasure the most. The spiritual fight for your time is linked to the spiritual fight for your treasure, and vice versa. You cannot lose one without losing the other. If one is healthy, the other will also be healthy. So now I gotta pause here for just a second and kind of, I don't know, digress for a moment, I guess. I know that you might be thinking that I'm going a little bit nuts with the spiritual war topic, and that I'm linking it to everything. Well, I mean, I can't deny that I'm linking it to everything, but I will deny that I'm nuts. The fact is, we have been sorely undertaught on this matter. It's perhaps the single most neglected big deal issue in our lives. Once you see the big picture of God's story, everything becomes filtered through his narrative and not ours. We become characters in a larger epic where we are born in rebellion, but he has made a way for us to change our allegiance through his son, Jesus Christ. And then once we're transferred from the kingdom of darkness and into his glorious kingdom of light, we become at war with the kingdom that we were rescued from. There's no ifs, there's no ands or buts about it, okay? So I am not crazy. On the contrary, I am more sane than ever. And yeah, I know that crazy people always say that they're the most sane person, okay? I can only plead the same defense that Paul did to the Corinthian church. He said in 2 Corinthians 5:13, if we have lost our minds, it is for God. And if we are of sound mind, it is for you. So I hope that this helps. I know I'm a little behind schedule in getting these episodes produced. It seems to be the norm for now. So if it is the norm, I guess, am I really behind? At any rate, my hope is that when we produce, or when I produce something, it's clear, it's understandable, and easy to access. Okay, so I'll be back here hopefully in a couple of weeks with the next episode of the series. 2 more to go. Until then, grace and peace.